Welcome to Lecture 5.2, in which we will discuss the role of energy in chemical reactions and the role of ATP. This over here is a 3D image of the structure of ATP. Our learning objectives for this video are to distinguish between free energy and activation energy, understand how the change in free energy determines whether a reaction is exergonic or endergonic, define metabolism, anabolism, and catabolism, explain the role of ATP in living organisms, and define what redox reactions are. All chemical reactions require energy. As a reminder, a chemical reaction involves reactants, which are the inputs, and products, which are the outputs. Sometimes these reactants are put together to create a larger product, like carbon dioxide and water into glucose, and sometimes they are broken down into smaller products, like the opposite reaction of breaking carbohydrates down into carbon dioxide and water. In any chemical reaction, bonds are formed, broken, and rearranged, and energy is used every time. This image shows an energy curve, which is the amount of energy that is used or released in a reaction over time. The reactant is higher energy than the product in this case. There is always a little hump in the energy curve, and this represents the activation energy. This is the energy barrier that needs to be passed for the reaction to take place. All chemical reactions will always need at least a little bit of energy investment first. You can think of it as a little kick needed to get momentum going. The lower the activation energy, or the lower the hump on the graph, the faster a chemical reaction occurs. As we will learn in the next video, enzymes are able to lower the activation energy to make a reaction occur more quickly. Once the barrier has been crossed, the reaction will proceed and release energy. Free energy, represented by the symbol G, is the amount of energy available for the reaction to occur. What we really care about, though, is the change in free energy, represented by delta G, with delta meaning change. This is the difference in energy between the reactants and products, and how much net energy was released or absorbed over the course of the reaction. We won't really get into this, but the change in free energy is ultimately determined by a combination of how much energy was stored in the bonds and how much entropy is in the system. While all energy curves more or less look the same, whether the reactants or products have a higher energy state will determine whether a reaction is exergonic or endergonic. An exergonic reaction releases energy. The X, though, means outside, and ergon means work, like how something that is ergonomic is more efficient or comfortable for work. Energy is released when the reactants have more energy than the products. Put it another way, the reactants are less stable and the products are more stable, so the reactants would prefer to join together to become the product. The amount of energy that is released is the difference in energy between the two. This results in a negative delta G, since the amount of energy that is needed to be put in is less than the amount of energy that was released once the reaction occurred. An exergonic reaction is also called a spontaneous reaction because it is a chemical reaction that can naturally occur on its own, without any help. Note that this is different from the activation energy. The activation energy determines how fast a reaction occurs, while the delta G determines whether or not the reaction would occur on its own. Some things that are spontaneous can take thousands of years to occur. Endergonic reactions are the opposite, as the products have a higher energy state than the reactants. Endo means inside, referring to how endergonic reactions absorb energy instead of releasing it. A lot of energy is put in at the beginning of the reaction, and less of the energy is released as the reaction occurs. The remaining energy that was put in is absorbed by the products and kept as potential energy inside the chemical bonds. Endergonic reactions are not spontaneous, which means that they will not occur on their own because so much energy investment is required upfront with no payout in the end. In the context of biology, every chemical reaction that occurs in an organism is metabolism. Metabolism can be divided into two categories. Anabolism refers to chemical reactions that use energy to build larger molecules. Since energy is used, these are endergonic reactions. Photosynthesis, which takes carbon dioxide and water to build carbohydrates, is an example of anabolism. Catabolism refers to reactions that break molecules down into smaller components. This process releases energy, and so is exergonic. Cellular respiration, which breaks carbohydrates and other nutrients down for energy, is an example of catabolism. One way to remember that catabolism involves breaking things down is to think of how cats like to knock things over the ledge and break them. Redox reactions are a special class of chemical reactions that will be especially relevant as we talk about cellular respiration in the next lecture, and are by definition chemical reactions that involve the transfer of electrons. Oxidation is a reaction in which an atom or a molecule loses electrons. It is called oxidation because when the process was first discovered, it occurred because of oxygen. In the context of biology, oxidation usually leads to the gain of an oxygen atom or the loss of hydrogens. Reduction is a reaction in which an atom or molecule gains electrons. It's called reduction because gaining an electron reduces the charge of the atom or molecule. In biology, this often occurs as a result of gaining hydrogens. Reduction and oxidation reactions must always occur together, which is why they're called redox reactions. When one atom or molecule loses an electron, there must be another atom or molecule that takes and gains an electron. Finally, let's talk about ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate and is a nucleotide. It is often referred to as the energy currency of the cell because it is often used as a source of energy when work is performed in the cell. In other words, ATP is exchanged to obtain energy needed for life to be maintained. Like all nucleotides, ATP is made from a 5-carbon sugar, a nitrogenous base, and phosphate groups. The A tells us that the nitrogenous base is adenine, which is called adenosine when combined with the sugar ribose. Since it is called triphosphate, that means that it has 3 phosphate groups. This bond between the phosphate group that's farthest from the adenosine and the middle phosphate group has a lot of potential energy. As a result, the phosphate group has a preference for leaving the ATP. When ATP is used, the bond is broken to release the energy that is stored inside of it. In the resulting hydrolysis reaction, ADP is formed with the D standing for diphosphate or 2 phosphate groups, and the phosphate is now a free phosphate. ADP can be further broken down to AMP, with M meaning monophosphate or 1 phosphate. ATP can be reformed again when carbohydrates or fats are broken down, and then exchanged again to power more cellular processes. In this video, we learned that all chemical reactions require energy input in the form of activation energy. If the energy output is greater than the energy input, then the result is a net release of energy in an exergonic and spontaneous reaction. If the energy output is less than the energy input, then the result is a net absorption of energy in an endergonic and non-spontaneous reaction. Metabolism includes all the chemical reactions that occur in an organism, with anabolism being the endergonic reactions and catabolism the exergonic reactions. We also learned about redox reactions, which involve reduction, the gain of electrons, and oxidation, the loss of electrons. Finally, we learned that ATP is the energy currency of the cell, and we generate it so that we can exchange it to perform cellular work needed for life. In the next video, we will discuss enzymes, which are important for lowering activation energy in chemical reactions needed for life. Thanks for watching.